Whatever the mind of a man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Napoleon Hill.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Mentality. It's your boy Gambo, and today I have a special guest with me, Garry Johnson III. We're discussing the importance of entrepreneurship. What are some of the challenges, struggles, and upsides of dealing in entrepreneurship? Stay tuned as we chop it up with a pro in another interesting episode. All right, welcome back to the show, guys. I'm here today with Garry Johnson. Garry, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Phenomenal.
Good to
It's a
know.
blessing to be here.
So Garry Johnson is actually a serial entrepreneur. He is the founder of First Founders in Knowcapp, and currently, surprisingly to me, actually, is the program manager and designer at Venture Cafe Philadelphia. Did I get that correctly? Do you want to introduce yourself properly for the people, Garry?
It was almost perfect.
Almost perfect.
Almost perfect. Program manager and experience designer
Ooh.
at Venture Cafe Philadelphia. And it is a surprise to me as much as it is to you.
Can you touch on what a experience designer is?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about like a product manager and people who design the user experiences for apps, whether it's Uber, Instagram, Snapchat, they are thinking about the experience that you as a user are going to have when you interact with that product. For me, as a program manager, I am in charge of a weekly event. It's almost like a mini conference that happens every Thursday in Philadelphia, connecting investors, entrepreneurs, innovators, artists. And my job is to curate meaningful experiences where people are connecting with one another, learning, sharing their expertise, and having a great time.
Nice. Sounds like a really fun role to actually kind of be a part of. Very cool. That was just for my own personal curiosity. So I wanted to get you here today to talk to you about the importance of entrepreneurship, because I know as I introduced you as a serial entrepreneur, I know you have had lots of experience in that field, and as someone who I've known for quite some time now, I know what some of your experiences have been. Some I'm completely not aware of, and I want you to be able to educate some of the listeners and myself included on what is the importance of building a business, and what are also some of the challenges that you face as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, and would you recommend that to people? Why and why not?
All right, so answer all of those questions right here, right now.
Absolutely.
All right,
Right
you
now, you
got it.
have 2 minutes.
So no, don't do it. It's horrible. Just kidding. Actually,
I was gonna say.
I have a lot of great experiences. A lot of, I mean, experience is experience. So you can look at it in one of two ways. You can look at it as a bad experience and a failure, or you can look at it as an opportunity for growth and learning. So I prefer the latter. And with everything that I've done, whether it's been a success or not, I look on the bright side of things and try to think about, okay, what did I learn and how can I apply that to the next thing that I'm doing?
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Experience is experience, and I think experience is to be valued nonetheless, regardless of whether you succeed or that you fail. I think there's something to be said about you learning from your failures and being better. So failing forward. Would that be correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
And it's definitely easier said than done.
Mm,
I think that, well, for one, thank you for having me on your show.
of course.
Um,
Thank you for coming.
of course, of course. I think entrepreneurs are like the new rock stars,
Mm,
and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur now. It's just like the cool thing to do, um, and just everybody's doing it. And I think a lot of that comes from social media and people seeing what's promoted as the entrepreneur lifestyle, which
right.
it comes with like, you know, nice cars and traveling around the world and nice dinners and just all these incredibly dope experiences, and like you see everything except for like the work.
Word.
So I mean, I do recommend entrepreneurship for everyone, But that means different things for different people. Like, being an entrepreneur doesn't have to mean you quit your full time job
Mm.
and you want to work full time on like your own thing. Um, it doesn't mean that you have to start like a traditional small business and purchase inventory and try to sell stuff. And I think it also doesn't mean that you have to actually start your own business to be an entrepreneur. I think that entrepreneurship can definitely be a mindset,
Mm.
and there are people who can develop entrepreneurial thinking that in turn can be applied to their full time job. And in that way, they're able to think of new creative solutions, innovative solutions that require an entrepreneurship,
Mm.
an entrepreneurial mindset.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I guess so. What is the import? Is there an importance centered around starting businesses, especially for Black and Brown people? And what would you say that importance is?
Well, I think the importance is definitely in ownership.
Mm.
We have to own we have to own stuff. We have to own
Facts.
our own things. And right now we are behind in many different ways. And one way that we build um, equity and resilience and fortitude in our communities is having ownership to, multiple different kinds of businesses in the community, creating ways that our communities are self-reliant and sustainable, um, and that support each other.
Right.
Um, I think through business ownership is how we create wealth. Um, and there's a racial wealth gap across the country. Um,
Absolutely.
we are behind right now. We will be behind for a very long time, um, until there's more business ownership, until there's more invested in our communities, and unfortunately, the businesses that we develop and the innovations that we come up with, is oftentimes under invested in.
Mm.
So we often have to rely on ourselves to invest in ourselves.
Right.
We can't expect for people who are not from our community, who don't resonate with the problems that we're trying to solve, to want to invest in our solutions. And we need people who have the means, who have the funds, the resources, the connections, or whatever, to help entrepreneurs who look like us be successful, because we know that typically you give back to those communities that you come from. So when we have success stories where if we had, let's say, a black Elon Musk, right, that
Right.
that came from Oakland, right, like when he blows up and he makes his billions, he's going back to Oakland and he's investing, reinvesting in that community, and most likely others as well.
Mm.
Um, so I think that's the importance, and I think, but even so, that aside, like taking out like technology startups and things like that, you have everyday business owners who are powering our communities, like the people who run the laundromat, right, or like the corner store or the grocery store, like they are powering our community. Without those businesses,
Facts.
our communities fall apart. We don't give them the praise that they deserve. They're not celebrities typically in our communities. They don't make,
Mm.
millions of dollars, um, but they are the backbone of our communities. And we need more of them, and we need an ecosystem of business ownership, um, and organizations that support those businesses. So, businesses have challenges, right? Businesses need funding. Let's stick with funding. So, like, if a small business owner needs a small business loan, um, historically, black business owner goes to the bank, they're denied that loan. But when you have, community-based financial institutions that are
Mm.
run by the same people from the community, they are more likely to provide funding to those businesses, give them additional support, mentorship, guidance, business planning, um, and it's there's nothing shady about it. There's no like
Right.
unfavorable, interest rates on loans, and you know, our communities are more likely to be victims of predatory lending practices. So, the more we own in general, the better. And for me, I look at myself as an entrepreneur who's on a mission to empower other entrepreneurs, and that's whether they're small business owners, tech startup founders, or whatever. So through like businesses I've started, and I really call them, for the most part, experiments, right?
Okay.
Um, I look at I look at how might we use technology to help a business that's not necessarily scalable or ever going to scale outside of
Hmm.
its direct community, but can we leverage technology to help them do their job better, to help them work more efficiently, to help them increase their likelihood of success.
Right.
And then simultaneously, I've created um, programs that empower entrepreneurs to also learn how to leverage technology and to build a scalable business that is going to solve a problem that they care about as well.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you. So you actually touched on a couple of things that I would definitely want to delve more in deeper later as we continue our talk. One which is certainly like financing. I think you started talking about that, and I have a couple questions and a couple inputs that I want to make on that topic, and also the second was um you know your ventures and your businesses that you're running from my understanding of them. But really quickly, I want to divert to what you said earlier about businesses in our communities, like such as like bodegas and like corner stores and these like laundry, these like smaller businesses that people tend to overlook. That subsequently are really the ones that are really powering our communities. And during COVID-19, you're starting to see hopefully people will support more and more of these local businesses because if not, people are suffering. But you're seeing people suffering, and you wonder if that can lead to the demise or collapse of some of these neighborhoods that are being functioning. So you see bigger companies and like Starbucks, I know is one of them that's made that public, is they're moving more into like neighborhoods that are like black and brown historically. Even like McDonald's, these fast food chains are constantly capitalizing off of our dollars, but we keep supporting them and not our own businesses. So I guess like my question for you for that, like as someone who's in your space and you're doing what you're doing to help empower other people to understand the meaning of entrepreneurship and to be able to establish themselves as entrepreneurs, like is it frustrating? Is it like lonely being like a black entrepreneur in a field where you're like, I mean, we typically are minorities, but I feel like in that field specifically, is it like lonely and is it like frustrating when you see that?
Short answer, yes. Definitely, definitely. I think, um, yeah, entrepreneurship in general is typically a very lonely journey
Mm,
to embark on because, at least historically, it's been something that's not praised and held in a high regard.
right,
Like an entrepreneur is somebody who's like going against the grain and they're kind of crazy. And it's like,
right,
what do you mean you're gonna quit your job to work on some idea? Like what?
right,
Like you have stable income and you're gonna give up like the guarantee that you're gonna get paid every 2 weeks and you're gonna go like you're gonna quit your job. You're gonna work on this thing that is not guaranteed to succeed.
right.
Like that is a perception that has been a perception
Mm,
of entrepreneurship, um, and it's accurate. I mean, in a lot of cases, everybody has their own journey. Some people, save up a bunch of money before they quit their job and work on their own thing. Somebody have been has some people have been working on their own businesses, all their lives, and they've
mm,
never worked uh, uh, for someone else.
right.
Um, but for me, no, that's definitely been my experience. We both went to University of Delaware, and um, I I learned while I was at the university that I was passionate about entrepreneurship
Hmm.
in general.
I remember, man, you was
Um,
trying to get me in there, and I was like, I should have did it, but that's another story.
it's another story. It's another story. It's not too late.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I became like seriously like engulfed in that space and just
mm,
like I want to learn as much as possible. Like this is what I want to do. I don't like there were times where I didn't even know what business I wanted to do, but I just knew in
Mm.
general this is what I wanted to be around. These are the types of people I wanted to be around. I'm seeing people with money who've like, you know what I mean? Like I'm networking
Yeah.
with people who
Yeah.
have millions of dollars
Right.
from starting their own companies,
Right.
and you know, I resonated more with that than um, going to the job fair and trying to find the right career for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I had gone to career fairs, and I remember going to one and being like dang, like these are my options, like like this is
That's all y'all got to offer.
like yeah, like I don't want any of this. Like, do I have to? Is this what life is? I have to
Mm.
pretend like I have to pick from this menu, and like, you know what I
Jesus,
mean?
that's a
Like,
good way to
I'm
put
like,
it.
I don't even like this restaurant, and I'm being forced to pick something off of this menu.
Word.
Um, so yeah, so entrepreneurship gave me that opportunity to explore, and that is the beauty of entrepreneurship to me.
Mm.
um, and I was able to explore my interests and explore the country. I was
Mm.
able to travel, from New York to San Francisco, attending conferences and networking, and just learning so much and seeing other entrepreneurs who who were incredibly successful in my eyes,
Mm.
but they were all experiencing similar challenges, like especially black founders and black women founders.
Mm.
Um, and regardless of how successful their company was, they were still facing these barriers and limitations of, let's say, investors not believing in their idea.
Mm.
Let's say they were beyond idea stage. They're a company. They're up and running. They've got a team. They're making money,
Mm.
and investors still look at them and say, in my eyes, you are not the picture of what an entrepreneur is, right? Like
Why do you think
traditionally,
that is? Why do you think that is?
um, it's actually it's bias. It's
Mm.
bias. It can be racism.
Mm.
It certainly can be racism. Um, and I mean, if you look at the numbers, like more than 90% of venture capitalists, right? And that's a
Mm.
very specific kind of funding. Um, More than 90% of venture capitalists are white men.
Mm.
Those white men belong to certain circles and networks,
Right.
and those networks typically look like them.
Right.
So when they see an entrepreneur, and when they've invested in an entrepreneur, and that entrepreneur goes on to become successful, and that entrepreneur looks like Mark Zuckerberg, or that entrepreneur looks like Elon Musk, or that entrepreneur looks like Steve Jobs, then
Mm.
they have this pattern matching where they say entrepreneur equals
Right.
white guy,
Right.
white guy with a certain background for the most
Right.
part too. So that is part of the problem. Um, People definitely make excuses where they'll say, um, oftentimes we're just not ready. Like as
Mm.
like an investor or a loan provider may say, oh, they weren't ready, right? And that very well may be the case, but that also really upsets me because it's an excuse. It's for one an excuse, and it's also like, okay, well, saying I'm not ready is one thing, but when you are in a position to invest in companies, in entrepreneurs that are going to go on to develop companies that are going to, be incredibly scalable, they're going to serve users, individuals across the country, maybe even around the world. Um, they're going to employ people. Like typically these companies that are getting venture capital investment are going to employ lots and lots of people, right?
Mm.
Um, but at the end of the day, those investors are investing in companies that are going to make them rich. Like they are venture capitalists because they're trying to capitalize off of your venture, right? So that money is helping create generational wealth.
Facts.
And when you look at then who is not receiving venture capital investment, and seeing that those people who are not receiving investment are people that look like us, we are missing out on all these opportunities for wealth creation, generational wealth creation. Um,
If you
and
don't
then
mind me, like,
yeah,
sorry, interjecting and like playing devil's advocate really
please
quickly. So do
go
you
ahead.
think there are any, like, you think a lot of times it might be a circumstance where our ideas just aren't as they're not on par compared to others' ideas, and maybe is that does that resonate from lack of grooming or lack of
Mm.
being trained in a field like entrepreneurship?
That question is so funny. I think of course, yes, of course, but but oh, it's people out here that have met with an investor for a
Mm.
lunch meeting.
And they
They
get the
write up
gig.
an idea on a napkin.
Oh wow.
They say, "Oh, it's Uber for dogs," and you just draft something up really quick on a napkin, on a
Right.
napkin.
Right.
And investors say, "Yeah, here you go, 1 mil," right?
Right.
So it definitely happens both ways. Like, and
Mm.
that scenario is no, not all the time, no, but certainly things like that have happened. So
Right.
people have been granted funding and access to resources for having done much less than we've done. Um,
Yeah.
and the saying, like, we got to be twice as good for half as much.
Mm.
I mean, I've seen it play out,
Mm.
and I've realized along my journey, um, I've become, I'm not just an entrepreneur, but I'm an advocate for Black and Brown entrepreneurs.
Facts.
And what I realized along that journey is, like, as much as I speak out for and fight for and try to get resources for people who look like us, I'm facing the same barriers that they're facing. you know.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. But I mean, the data says it all. The data says,
Facts.
you
Yeah.
know, it's not about how good an idea is. It's not about how many entrepreneurs there actually are, how many investors there actually are. It's definitely about access. It's definitely about bias.
Mm.
It's about inclusion and a lack of equity for sure. But I
Mm.
mean, and there's people out here who have incredible ideas, and they may they may never go on to be entrepreneurs, right? Just
Right.
because the picture of an entrepreneur looks like, something that's not them. Or maybe because they were told by one person, like maybe one person shot them down one time,
Yeah.
and that told them everything they needed to know about entrepreneurship. They said, you know what, this ain't for me. Um, but I think the beauty of where we're at in the world right now, as horrible as things are currently,
Yeah.
um, there's an increasing focus on the importance of supporting Black entrepreneurs,
Yes.
of not just saying, oh, I'm going to mentor, I'm somebody who's been there, done that, I'm going to mentor this business owner, I'm going to mentor this aspiring entrepreneur. Like, yes, we need mentorship, but that only goes so far. Like, you
Absolutely.
sitting down with me 1 hour a week is not going to
Absolutely.
increase my trajectory and allow me to really take off.
Mm.
um, we need investment, we need money, we need equity, we need to be treated fairly. um, and it even boils down to, like teachers in business schools need to be trained on having a more inclusive mindset.
Mm.
Like, I have, so as much as I loved entrepreneurship programming at UD,
Mm.
um, I was still a Black man at a predominantly white institution
Mm.
working on ideas, startups, nonprofit ideas, whatever, that were going to support people that look like me. And I have to pitch those ideas to people who don't look like me.
Mm.
And I have been told, like, yo, like, why are you focused on one demographic? Isn't that reverse discrimination? Um,
Interesting.
why would you focus on creating a solution for Black people when that's a minority of the
Yeah.
population, right? But, like, and they would ask these questions, and this is I've learned that this is there's a similar experience to other founders, but they're asking these questions even after you've provided the business case and the data that says why this is an incredible business opportunity, right? When you say we're creating a product or a solution that's going to support an underserved population,
Right.
right? If this is an underserved population, and if this underserved population has, what is it, over what, 1.5 trillion? Is it 2 trillion um, in spending power? That's an incredible opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you tie in, when you tie in, and I don't even want to call it race, right? But that's not our invention. But when you tie in race,
Right.
um, that's when people want to back away from it. That's when they get all spooky and asking like questions that they wouldn't ask to someone else. And I'll give you a very specific um, situation. So,
Okay.
I'm in these classes. I'm in classes. I'm seeing my white counterparts,
Sorry,
and
this is was
this
you in college in
this
the
is me.
program.
This is me. Yes,
Okay.
this is me in college. Um, Other students would pitch their startups, right? One of the biggest tools in your toolkit as an entrepreneur is your pitch deck,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in these other students' pitch decks, as they describe their product, the problem they're solving, their solution, um, business model, all that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
there's pictures of white people, right? Pictures of white people all over the slides.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Right.
When I pitch my startup and my slides have only black people,
Mm-hmm.
why then does my teacher ask me question? So I notice there are a lot of people of color on your slides.
Really?
Is this product simply designed for people of color? But you did not ask that question. He did not ask that question to the students who had only white people on their slides. And part of that problem is because the world sort of views whiteness as standard.
Fair.
So
I was gonna say you think maybe that resulted from, and I'm not agreeing with this. I just love to play devil's advocate, right? But do you think
I'm
that
I'm ready to dance with the devil.
right?
Let's go.
I hate you. So do you think that maybe it comes from her? And you're right. The mindset that maybe because white people are the majority in the United States, that's probably why it's almost like the baseline, which is still wrong. But you think maybe that's
Now,
where the mindset's coming from?
now here we go. Here we go. And to build off of that,
Mm,
right? The reality of things, and like I said, the data. We will present the data. It'll be right there, but we
right.
still get asked these. I'm gonna call them stupid questions.
They are stupid questions.
You know, one of the slides in your pitch deck is an opportunity slide.
Hmm.
So your opportunity slide describes what's going on in the market, what's going on in the world. Like, why now? Why
Right.
right now is it important for you to launch this new startup? My opportunity, the opportunity I see and that others see, is that the United States is becoming increasingly
Brown.
more diverse. Yes. So by 2040, 2044, the number sort of fluctuates, but the US is going to become a majority, quote unquote, minority population,
Hmm.
right? So with all that framing and all that context and saying, hey, we are positioning ourselves to be a leader in this market and to be ready, right? Like we're going to we're ahead of the curve here,
Right.
right? And for that to still not be good enough um, is unfortunate. And
Mm.
for me as a student entrepreneur, like there wasn't much on the line, but people who've been pitching for, they need millions of dollars to actually get some kind of company off the ground. Um, for people like that with higher stakes,
Hmm.
that's it for them, and their company may never get off the ground.
Yeah. That sounds like a very frustrating space to be in, and I can certainly speak from someone who's in the corporate world that like everything that you mentioned, I see honestly the same thing. So whether it's the whole opportunity thing of like someone else coming up with an idea like with a napkin scenario that you gave, and you coming up with factual data and having a really good idea and it's still not taking it seriously because of the idea of what that person should be or should look like or what success should look like isn't coincide with who you are. It's really frustrating. And yeah, I hope we get better at that. I don't. I think that's like ridiculous. And hopefully we are turn like people like you and I are like helping to kind of turn that around and that whole narrative of what success should look like and who we are and what we can do, our opportunities or our capabilities rather. Hopefully
And
it turn that tide.
yes, and I see it happening.
Facts.
I am optimistic. I do have
Yes.
hope.
Yeah.
Hope is the word of the day.
Yes.
Um, I see it happening. Um, I I feel like it's been a privilege for me to be an entrepreneur at the time that I've been alive,
Mm.
because in the past couple of years there's been this increasing focus on supporting underrepresented founders, as we're called now. That's black people, brown people, people of color in general,
Mm.
LGBTQIA
Mm.
individuals. Um, and talking about ownership, there's been this almost like an uprising. I'm gonna call it an uprising
Okay.
of those who have means and those who have not had the means, and are now getting access to the means,
Mm.
by any means. So you have, black venture capitalists who are now gaining prominence, and these black venture capitalists are looking at the industry that they work in, and they're saying, you know what, we don't like this. We're going to create our own funds. We're going to specifically invest in black and brown founders. Like that is ownership, right?
Mm.
And just like I said, so if a white investor, um, for the most part, is going to invite in white entrepreneurs, then the black investor is going to invest in black entrepreneurs.
Right.
The more black investors, the better for us.
Yes.
So you have not just investors who are building their own funds, like $1 million funds, right? Um, you also have black people creating their own programs. I mean, I'm one of them,
Like you.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but I've been inspired by the stories of other people. Like me being an entrepreneur during this time, seeing, okay, there's this focus on increasing diversity in tech and entrepreneurship, cool. But also like looking up to those people who look like me,
Mm.
who are trailblazers, right? And saying, look, like the only way it's going to get better is if we stop relying on other people and we get up and we do it ourselves. So, there are investors, right? I'm not in a position to be an investor yet. When I
Mm.
am, trust me, Gambo, you got it. I'm writing
Mm.
that first check right to you.
Yo, ooh, boy, you better stop
You
playing.
you you heard it here first. Um, but yeah, so not there aren't just investors, there are also programs like entrepreneurial programs that teach entrepreneurship, that
Mm.
connect individuals with mentors who can support them, who give them funding, not mentors who give them funding, but the programs who give them funding,
Mm.
who give them co-working space, right, to learn and to work together. Um, and what I did was, I had the privilege of traveling the country, learning from different startup ecosystems and how they supported their entrepreneurs. And
Right.
I said, you know what, like we've got a really unique opportunity in Delaware where we don't have an accelerator program.
Mm.
Like if you go out to San Francisco, you say accelerator, people know what that means.
Right.
An accelerator is a program that occurs over a very short amount of time, typically 12 weeks, usually invests about $100,000 into the startups that participate. And the goal is to speed up their growth and development in that short amount of time. So they're
Mm.
throwing money at you, they're throwing mentors at you, they're connecting you with investors and all this kind of stuff. And by the end of it, you know, it's an accelerator. So by the end of it, they want to have you like up and running. Like you got traction, like
Right.
your business model is solid, and you're ready to go. Um, Delaware didn't have that, and Delaware certainly doesn't have a business community that was familiar with the, the the tech entrepreneurship
Mm.
that is popular in New York, in California, in um, even in Philadelphia, like many other places. Delaware is just behind. Um, so I said, okay, so that's one opportunity. An opportunity on top of that is that for these for these other ecosystems like your New Yorks and California, yes, they have more robust entrepreneurial ecosystems, but they're also in trouble. And they're in trouble because they have not been inclusive. They have not been intentionally inclusive and diverse from the beginning.
Mm.
So now in the news, at the time anyway, looking at the news and articles and things like, you know, these ecosystems are in trouble because their accelerator programs only have, one woman or
Mm.
no women and no black people, or they've been around for 10 years and they've only supported three black startups
Mm.
out of the hundreds of companies that have gone through their programming. Um, so the opportunity again that I saw was that Delaware is a baby when it comes to building its entrepreneurial landscape,
Full of opportunity.
full of opportunity. We can do it the right way, is
Mm.
what I would say. We can do it. We have the opportunity to do it the right way from the beginning, as
Right.
opposed to trying to tie in, weave in diversity and inclusion and equity
Right.
like after the fact. I said, no, let's do it now.
Mm.
Let's do it. Let's do
Right.
it right now. So that's how the first Founders Accelerator got started.
So
Um,
I'm sorry, just to kind of double check and to
yeah,
clarify for our listeners. So
please.
First Founders is essentially this accelerator is an accelerator program where you curate and help. I don't want to say mentor, but mentor and guide, new business owners and startups to kind of get them connected with the right people and make sure they gain traction for when they put out their business that it's pretty much hitting the ground running from the jump. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That is
Okay, that's dope,
exactly
man.
correct.
Or
I'm an educator as well,
mm,
an entrepreneurship educator. So I'm the main instructor.
mm,
I teach what I know, yeah,
mm,
but I also recruit mentors who are experienced in their fields as well.
mm,
Other entrepreneurs who've been successful, investors, as well as people who are not entrepreneurs. Like we've brought in people who are they run growth marketing at Facebook,
mm,
right? And you think like, well, what does that have to do with, you know, an entrepreneur?
right.
Well, the entrepreneur then learns about Facebook ads and growth marketing and applies that to their startup. Like that's what you need, right? So
Exactly.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe we don't have an entrepreneur who can come in and speak to that, but we do have an expert
Right.
who can. Also having design, experienced design thinkers and program managers from Microsoft coming in,
Mm,
lending their experience and expertise to the founders. Having investors who come in and share how to pitch to an investor.
mm,
This is what you need to do. This is how you communicate with an investor via email. All of that. One of the biggest things that I help entrepreneurs with is their pitch. So,
very important.
regardless of how good your idea is, if your messaging isn't good enough, if you can't articulate your unique value, like what
Mm,
problem you're solving, what your solution is, how big this opportunity is,
mm,
if you can't do that, the person on the other side of the table is not going to care, right?
right.
So I see first founders as, in a small way, alleviating that challenge where, like we talked about before, entrepreneurs not being ready, or not having their product like up to a place where an investor wants to invest in it.
Mm,
At least we know that if they are denied for something, right, it's because this investor doesn't invest in that stage, right? Or this investor needs to see a little bit more traction, like as opposed to this entrepreneur didn't have the materials and didn't have the language to be able to go into that conversation, equipped and with the knowledge and understanding of what the other side would want to see.
mm.
Um, so yeah, that's what First Founders is. We've graduated two cohorts.
Nice.
Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
very
you. So
welcome.
I mean, it's a work in progress. It is still an ongoing experiment. Our first cohort was industry agnostic.
Mm,
It was limited to participants who were in Delaware,
okay.
and there were only 8 entrepreneurs. So learned from that, had some successes from that. Like one graduate went on, like won a pitch competition, right?
Nice. Nice.
Another went on and was accepted into what is now one of the more prestigious startup programs. It's called Founder Gym.
Okay.
So she was accepted into that, graduated from that this past May. Um, and after that experience, learned, iterated, launched a second cohort earlier this year, right before the pandemic.
Mm.
It was a mix between in person and virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the cool thing was we increased our cohort, so we had 30 entrepreneurs participate.
Oh wow.
They were all over the
It's
country,
like
like
more than
literally
triple,
from.
man.
I know. I was like, look, we got to do it bigger and better. So
Mm.
expanded beyond Delaware because I hadn't planned it, but I think this is another good lesson for entrepreneurs. It's like, you're searching for unique value, right?
Mm.
Like you don't know necessarily why somebody wants to buy the thing that you have to offer or participate in the program that you have to offer.
Right.
Um, but you, as the entrepreneur, have the responsibility and like obligation to test your assumptions. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're just assumptions right now. So you put it out there and see how people react. And then what I found was people outside of Delaware were trying to participate in this program. And that's when I
Mm.
said,
Let's
we're
jump
on
on
to
that.
something.
Yeah.
We're on
Yeah.
to something. People in New York are trying to apply, right?
Mm.
So in our second cohort, there were people everywhere from New York to California. One was in Seattle. One
Nice.
one person was even in Kenya as
Wow.
she was participating in the program, which was super super cool.
That's dope.
It was dope, and yeah, we experimented with that cohort. The focus was actually on fintech,
Mm.
so financial technology, and again, part of the like everything I do like really does revolve around including people who look like us
Mm.
in these opportunities for wealth creation. So, an opportunity in Delaware was that Delaware is like positioning itself right now
Mm-hmm.
as a leader in the fintech space,
Okay.
right? It's not yet, right? We do have the banks,
Mm-hmm.
right? We do have um, the highest, what is it? It's like the highest number of fintech patents per capita.
Did not know that.
Yeah, fun fact. But I mean, Delaware is small, so it's like
Right.
there's that, and then like yeah, the banks. It's like J.P. Morgan, and all these banks are right here.
Mm.
Um, but Delaware is positioning itself as a fintech leader. I, as you mentioned before, I had my own startup called Knowcapp, and
Yes.
I was actually traveling very frequently to other states to benefit from their program offerings and their
Mm.
resources because Delaware just didn't have the resources to provide. So I earlier this year, I was traveling very frequently to New York, like regularly, like hop on the Greyhound, go to New York. They are the home of fintech, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
actually have a building um, devoted to fintech, and they bring in mentors and investors who are just focused on fintech.
Okay.
So what I said was, entrepreneurs who, let me start over. If we want to make sure that our fintech ecosystem is being built from the right way, from the ground up,
Mm-hmm.
we need to make sure that we are included from the very beginning. So First Founders then became a vehicle where we said, let's introduce entrepreneurs to what fintech even is,
Mm.
right? Let's teach them entrepreneurial basics, and they can apply that to the fintech space. Some of them went on to work on student loan solutions for millennials and Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
Others went on to develop solutions that are sort of like savings clubs and investment clubs that tie into insurance.
Okay.
But none of those solutions existed before First Founders. So the point being, like we have an opportunity to develop people and to include them in these spaces and opportunities that were not available before.
Okay. So, what is the distinction between First Founders and No Cap then?
So First Founders is a nonprofit.
Okay.
First Founders is a nonprofit that has an accelerator as one of its programs.
Right.
We also do pitch competitions. So we did a pitch competition in Philadelphia last year in
Okay.
collaboration with the African American Chamber of Commerce, which was dope,
Nice.
and the city of Philadelphia, I should mention. Um, NoCap is my tech startup.
Mm.
So two different types of businesses. Um, with Knowcapp, the goal was to create a product, right?
Okay.
Something that is going to leverage technology, something that um, at the time, in its original iteration, it was a website where a business owner seeking a small business loan would come to the website, enter some information,
Mm-hmm.
and then automatically be recommended um, the best option for financing,
Gotcha.
right? So that was the initial product, and that was a journey. I've certainly learned a
Right.
lot from doing that. Um, I've won awards. I've been accepted
Wow.
into more advanced programs myself. Again, like
Mm.
a lot of what I teach comes from what I learned from other places.
Mm.
So I was accepted into Founder Gym, and I was one of about 30 entrepreneurs around the country who
Mm-hmm.
were then learning from like these top investors and entrepreneurs and learning all about venture capital.
Right.
And when I applied, I applied just because I applied to everything. Like if I see an opportunity, I'm like, look, let me just apply. I'm going to shoot my shot.
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect to be accepted, but when I did get that acceptance email,
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh snap! I don't even have anything, right? Like I am good at like messaging and like
Mm-hmm.
relaying like my vision, right?
Right.
And the opportunity and all these kind of things. So like writing it out, like I can do that. I can record a video of myself, sort of like explaining why I'm passionate about doing this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But my startup hadn't had any traction yet. But after I got into the program, that's when I said, "Oh snap! If I'm going to be in a program with this caliber of people, I
I
got to
gotta.
get my stuff
Yeah, you
together.
gotta raise your bar up. Yeah.
I got to raise the bar." And in that moment, I literally leveled up, and I had to flip my mindset and say,
Mm.
"No, I am like I am good enough to be here,
Mm.
right? Like I am a tech entrepreneur.
Right.
I can't code. I literally can't code
Mm-hmm.
at this point, maybe just a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I couldn't build an app. I couldn't build a product.
Mm.
So I said, I'm going to do what I can do. And that's when I just started trying to get as much traction as I could, trying to work within my means, trying
Mm.
to leverage technology as opposed to creating and developing technology, and created create a system. Like I think that's another lesson for entrepreneurs. It's like you need to develop systems and processes that
Mm-hmm.
enable you to scale whatever your idea is. So it was kind of like I wasn't expecting it to happen,
Mm-hmm.
um, but created this what's called a minimum viable product. It's something that just has bare bones features. Like it's just a good enough thing just to put out there and test.
Right.
Put it out there, and people across the country were visiting the NoCap site. Like I could see like, oh, somebody in Arizona just completed this little like survey thing, and they saw whatever their option was. Um, and then as time went on, over the course of just like 3 months of testing, I'm seeing like, oh snap, somebody in Nigeria is using this. Somebody in it was like some island I've never even heard
Right.
of. Like I had to look it up on the map because I was like, where is this?
Mm.
And it was a business owner in some island, and I remember like connecting with them via email and just being like, why did you use the site?
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me this whole like three paragraphs worth of information
Wow.
about their struggles of being a black person on this island and being a business owner trying to get access to resources when
Mm.
people there just don't believe them, see the value in them.
Mm.
Um, and in that moment, it's sort of like when like it sort of like struck a chord with me, and I realized, wow, this is so much bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
Like going into it, I'm thinking, oh, we need to help our local communities and whatever, whatever. And then to find
It's a
out
global issue.
this is a global problem.
Right.
So actually, yeah, so NoCap has transformed along the way. Now it's at a point where the goal is to help individuals
Mm.
become financially healthy because, as I've learned, one of the barriers for business owners getting access to capital is even like them managing their personal finances
Mm.
in a way that positions them for success. So it all has sort of like a ripple effect. So I try to get as close to the I'm trying to get as close to the problem as I can, so
Right.
that when we're in a, not that I believe we'll ever like solve the problem for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
like eliminate it. Um, but if we can create a solution that, at least for, one person who uses the product, can we create a solution that allows them to not experience the problem like later on?
Mm-hmm.
That is the real goal.
Yeah, I mean, so. It sounds like you've had a long journey coming through, iterating through both businesses and kind of fine tuning it as you move along. And through what you're doing, what you were saying, I wanted to like kind of bring back the topic that I said I would, which is financing. And I understand that NoCap is one of your ventures that you kind of tried to align people with, try to give them access through technology, but also you mentioned investing, right? So like, how do you find investors and how do you yourself receive capital to try to leverage or try to upscale your business? Like, how does that? What is that like? Who are you reaching out to? And has that been successful?
Yeah. Full transparency.
Mm.
I have not raised venture capital myself.
Really?
Really. I mean, yeah. Venture
Wow.
capital is the real deal. And I can certainly, so what I should explain a little bit is, there are different types of funding, of
Mm.
course. And venture capital is a form of financing, that is typically more than what you would imagine you would get for something, maybe like a small business loan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to compare the two, so, for a small business loan, maybe you need like $50,000 to buy some equipment
Mm-hmm.
for your restaurant, right? You need $50,000. So you're going to go to the bank and get a small business loan. That loan is going to require that you put up some sort of collateral, right? Like,
Okay.
what do you have, right? That you can put up that we would take
What are you
if you
willing
don't,
to lose for
right?
this?
If you don't pay this back, right? You're expected to pay that money back,
Right.
and with interest,
Mm-hmm.
right? Venture capital is a whole different beast because it's rich people, it's wealthy people putting up money, right? To say, we're going to invest a bunch of money into this company,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this money is supposed to act as like jet fuel. And when we inject this jet fuel into this company, it's going to take off. It's going to be incredibly successful, and it's going to make us way more money than we initially put in.
Mm-hmm.
So just like a bank is trying to make money off of a loan, a venture capitalist is trying to capitalize on your venture too, but they're trying to make like 10 times the amount of money that they put into you,
Wow. Okay.
right? And not just that. So with venture capital, let's say you have an investor that wants to put in $1 million dollars into your company,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're going to say, okay, I want to put in $1 million dollars into your company. They're also going to take equity in your company. So they may want, for that $1 million dollars, they may want, let's say, 10%
Mm.
of your company. So now they have ownership in your company. They have a say,
Mm.
right? Even
Right.
if it's, this like minority stake, they have a say. And they also, as a part of their terms, they want you to return that money, as I said, 10 times over,
Right.
ideally. So they're saying, all right, $1 million, and we want 10%. Give us $10 million. We want $10 million
Mm-hmm.
when your company is successful, and that has to occur in less than 10 years.
Sheesh.
So in a way, an investor becomes like your boss, right?
Right.
And you're working to please the investor. The investor, typically, if they're a venture capitalist, they're working for other people. Venture capitalists are a part of like firms that
Mm-hmm.
are managing other wealthy people's money, right? So
Right.
it's like that investor themselves, like maybe they're not even, as wealthy as you might think.
Mm-hmm.
But they're trying to generate all these returns for other people,
Mm-hmm.
and then in turn, they're going to get their cut. And then at the end of the day, you as a founder are going to get whatever's left over.
Mm. So
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say. So I mean, like the amount of companies and startups that are actually going to get venture capital are going to receive venture capital is low.
Mm.
Um, and venture capital is for a specific type of business. So like if your business or your idea is only going to serve a certain portion or a certain share of the market, it may not be attractive to an investor because they know, oh, like you can, like this business can only make so much money doing this, right?
Right. Right.
And in your pitch, you're saying you're going to own, even if you own 100% of the market that you're saying you're in, that's still not enough for me,
Mm.
right? So entrepreneurs need to understand that there are a lot of different financing options that ranges from bootstrapping, where it's you putting in your own money.
Mm-hmm.
It's friends and family. It's going to the people you know who are close to you who may have money to put in.
Mm-hmm.
It's crowdfunding,
Mm-hmm.
right, and doing like a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that there are different types of crowdfunding models where
Mm-hmm.
one, you give up equity, and others, you don't give up equity. And also, there are some where you have to hit your goal to get your money, and there are others where if you don't hit your goal, you don't get your money.
Mm.
Or if you don't hit your goal, you
You
still
still
get the
get your
money.
money. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then from there, there's small business loans, which if you're a tech startup, typically you're not going to get a small business loan because they're incredibly risky and they're not proven business models, and
Mm.
the bank wants their money back, right? So
Yeah.
they're not betting here. Um, then you have angel investment, angel investors, which are individuals, like
Mm.
wealthy individuals who may want to invest in you, in your idea, in your startup. Um, and then a level up would be, venture capitalists.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've always intertwined, conflated, an angel investor versus a venture capitalist. So that thank you for clarifying that. That makes sense. So basically, what I'm hearing you saying is that even though someone gets approached by a capitalist, it's not necessarily the best route to take because of some of the downsides that might come with that deal. And so,
Oh
okay,
man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, and I should tell you, and I left out private equity,
mm,
which is like a similar beast to venture capital. Um, I was approached. I was offered a deal by
mm.
an individual who ran a private equity firm
Interesting. Okay,
and essentially wanted to buy Knowcapp, right?
okay,
I should say acquire Knowcapp.
right.
So in this deal, the firm would own Knowcap.
Mm-hmm.
I would still run Knowcap, but
Working for the firm,
underneath of the firm,
right?
right? So as an entrepreneur, this is a deal here. This is a two-sided deal. So you have to look at it and say, okay, like are these terms favorable to me,
Mm.
right? Do I want to give up my independence of doing
Mm-hmm.
things my way on my own terms? Am I comfortable with the payout, whatever the payout is,
Mm.
right? Like there was definitely there was an offer. There was an offer
Mm-hmm.
on the table, and honestly, I looked at it as like, are you kidding me? No way.
Mm.
Like at first I was like, this is validation. You know what I mean? Like
You're
this
doing something,
firm sees
right?
the value in my product that's not even like really really ready,
Mm-hmm.
but they see the value and like I'm solving a problem they're trying to solve in a way that they
Mm.
currently can't, um, and they want that. So that was dope. But the terms were, I would describe them as predatory. I would
I'm sure.
say it was like this is a horrible this is a horrible deal. This is a
Right.
horrible deal. And just like small business loans, right? It's like
Mm.
just because somebody wants to give you money doesn't mean you should
Should
take
take
that
it,
money.
right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times in our community, we struggle with understanding what that means. So, I think it's important to hear from someone like you who has kind of been through that experience and has like learned from that experience and like being able to read the fine print and be like, wait a minute, this does not sound as glamorous as it might seem. So that's dope. Um, really quickly, I want to touch on like some of the challenges. So I mean, I know we talked about the financial aspect, which we just covered, but some of the challenges of just being an entrepreneur, and what are also some with the flip side of that? What are some of the successes that comes out of it? If you could touch on that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think entrepreneurship it certainly can be worthwhile.
Mm,
It is probably the most stressful thing. It's the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life,
mm,
right? And I believe like, and I know other founders, and I know that they're going through it too,
right.
and we commiserate and stuff. Um, but when what makes it so worthwhile is that we all have a vision.
Mm,
We have a vision of what's possible. We have a vision of a better world, and we're on a mission to contribute to making that better world a reality, right? And we literally cannot get the vision out of our heads. So the beauty is when the vision becomes a reality, right?
right.
And in whether it's whether it's a small way or a big way, and those things just reinforce the journey, right? Like we talked about that decision to say like, do I want to be an entrepreneur or not, or what makes an entrepreneur. Um, you know, the, an entrepreneur, a business owner is always gonna, not maybe not always, but from time to time they're gonna question themselves,
Mm,
and you may face a series of difficulties and challenges that tell you like you're just like, why am I doing this?
this is crazy. Yeah.
This is crazy. This is not working. I'm stressed out. I'm sad. I'm upset. I'm depressed. Whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
like that's all reality. That comes with the territory.
Mm,
Like it really does. Um, but when you have those moments where you find out your product is being used by somebody halfway across the world who you never
mm,
would have imagined even resonated with the problem you were trying to solve.
right.
For me, like one of my proudest moments, and my first venture was technically a pitch competition,
Mm,
and I I created this pitch competition for young men of color in Wilmington, Delaware,
mm-hmm.
because I was doing all these programs at the University of Delaware, and I said, "Yo, like we need stuff like this, but in the
In the hood,
community,
right? Yeah.
right?" So we did that, and we got like young kids that look like us, right? Like 8 to 18 year olds
Mm-hmm.
coming up with ideas, concepts, and
That's
just
dope.
like standing up there presenting themselves to the community. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
This is what my idea is.
Man, that's
And
dope.
they're pitching to a panel of judges who are successful investors, entrepreneurs, business owners
Right.
who are from that same community and who look
Dog.
like them. They're black men from that
Nice.
community. So I was incredibly proud to be able to do that.
Mm,
But the success story is when a mom comes up to you at the end of the competition and her son, who won second place, didn't even win like the whole competition, right?
mm-hmm.
Won second place, comes up to you, grabs your arm, like came up to you, grabs my arm, and just looks me in the eye and says, "Thank you, bruh."
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's a different level of like fulfillment. You know what I
Yes,
mean? And
yes,
I know when we before we even started talking, we were talking offline. You and I was kind of talking about like some of my experiences, which unfortunately we haven't gotten a chance to get into. But
oh, we
I'm
need a part
sure,
two.
yeah, we definitely need the. There's a lot much more that I definitely want to talk about. But that level of fulfillment right there, man, I feel like that's a beautiful thing, and that's something that's hard to come by. And
Mm.
so, I mean, if you find any solace in what I'm about to say, is that man, you are absolutely on the right track. I don't need to tell you that because I'm sure you know that, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing right there, man. Really quickly before we wrap things up, because I'm really appreciative of you coming here and sharing some knowledge. It's like what advice would you give to young people who look like us or anybody in general who's trying to pursue entrepreneurship? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I say the first thing is you got to believe in yourself. When you embark on your own journey, you are going to face what seems like a, uh, a limitless end of barriers and obstacles and people telling you that you can't do it, people that do not believe in you, people who want to see you fail.
Mm.
But you have to stick to your mission, stick to your cause. And I think, um, I think for a lot of people, they think I have to come up with the thing,
Right.
right? Like, what is my thing going to be? And I
Mm.
don't look at it that way. I say, like, go explore, go try different things. You won't know what you really, really care about until you explore and experience different things in different ways. You're going to test, you're going to experiment, you're going to fail, but you're going to learn along the way. And that's how I've discovered like what I'm good at and what really motivates me. But
Mm.
I couldn't, like way back in the beginning, I couldn't say like, this is what I want to do. This is the
Right.
thing. Like I didn't know. I didn't know enough. So I would tell anybody who's aspiring or in the early stages, believe in yourself, try, right? Like try, keep trying, surround yourself with others who are of a similar mindset um, of entrepreneurship. And that doesn't necessarily mean they need to be entrepreneurs and have their own businesses, but are they self starters? Are they go getters? Are they people who have been knocked down and have gotten back up, and can motivate you and help you when you face your own challenges?
Right.
Because the journey is long, it is hard, but it is not impossible. It's not insurmountable. So,
Mm.
we're gonna win if we all go up together.
Facts.
So, my last ask would be for everyone to visit firstfounders.org and leave your
Absolutely.
email, because we are building a community of entrepreneurs who are at the early stages, who are working on solutions that empower our communities. And we want the world to look like a better place. And we're just coming together, sharing resources, supporting one another,
Mm.
and we all gonna win.
Where, man? Where can the people find you really quickly, man?
My personal social media would be at Garry Johnson III, as in Garry Johnson III.
Mm-hmm.
That's on Instagram. That's on Twitter. That's on LinkedIn. Um, that's that. And then if you want Knowcapp, Knowcapp is actually spelled KNOWCAPP. So at Knowcapp everywhere. And First Founders is on Instagram as at First Founders. Twitter at First Founders __. I need some more money to pay that dude for the for the at First Founders with no underscore.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm there. I mean, everything. I post everything on my own personal pages. So if nothing else, I would say follow me there, and you will certainly be updated on things to come.
Word. All right, Gary. Appreciate you super, super so much, man, for just being here and for just shedding some light and some knowledge and just for constantly making us proud, man. It's been refreshing to watch your journey, and I'm sure it's gonna be even so much better just to watch you in the next couple of years and what you do, and hopefully we're all able to kind of like transpire in some of the roads that you've been on. But thank you for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
All of our listeners, we really appreciate y'all for listening. As always, y'all can catch us out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts on, or you can go check us out on Instagram at Mentality Radio. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Deuces.